Let's go, folks. Time for the Gibby Show.
How you doing, baseball fans, and welcome to another edition of the Gibby Show, presented by Miller Lite, the official beer of Major League Baseball and the Gibby Show. I'm John Arezzi, and joining me, the former two-time manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, a member of the 1986 World Champion New York Mets, co-author of the best-selling book Gibby, Tales of a Baseball Lifer, and narrator of the audio version of that book as well. Joining us from the Lone Star State of Texas in San Antonio, the star of the Gibby Show. He is baseball lifer himself, John Gibbons. Gibby, you are back in San Antonio and in the state of Texas, where the two Lone Star States baseball teams are at it right now for the American League Championship. How are you enjoying the postseason so far, especially with the Rangers and Astros competing for the ALCS?
Yeah, it's big down here now. You know, plus the Cowboys played last night. And they got a W against the old Chargers. But yeah, you know what? Hey, things are good down here. We would love to see the Blue Jays in it, but they're not. But I'm a big fan of the Rangers. You know, for the guys running that. You know, Chris Young, Dayton Moore. You know, and of course Bochy taking over, and then big fan of the guys in Houston. Dana Brown, my old boss in Atlanta, who used to also work for the Blue Jays, is now their GM. So, yeah, good times down here in Texas.
Absolutely. It's great for the state, especially this series is just so highly competitive, and it's so exciting to see these two teams go at it, to see who's going to eventually make the World Series. Unfortunately, the Blue Jays, like the rest of us, are watching the playoffs at home, of course, but they're making news, highlighted by the press conference held by President and CEO Mark Shapiro last week. We're going to discuss that and take a look at the 7 pending free agents the Jays will have to decide to go after or part ways with. And then later on, Gabbing with Gibby, brought to you by Tim Hortons. We're going to bring back the senior baseball writer for The Athletic. This is a great time to bring him back. He's the Fox Sports reporter, Ken Rosenthal. And as always, inspired by our friends at Miller Lite, we're going to have another roast and toast for you today. But Gibby, let's just start, as we always do, with the leadoff. Last Thursday, Toronto Blue Jays president and CEO Mark Shapiro met with the media to answer questions about the 2023 season, and he doesn't go out and speak very much. Everyone had on their mind the lingering questions about the early departure of the Jays in the playoffs, as well as the early departure of Jose Barrios in Game 2. Let's discuss the comments Shapiro had about the Barrios removal. While he said he did not know when Barrios was going to be taken out for Yusei Kikuchi, he did say it was an organizational plan to do so. So he did confirm that. But he also said that it was John Schneider's call when to execute that plan. And he also said, quote, "Accountability lies at the top. It lies with me. We're not looking to say John Schneider made a mistake or Ross made a mistake or who made a mistake. We made a mistake. It didn't work. We need to learn and get better from it, but we also need to be okay making mistakes." Now, Gibby, did Shapiro finally diffuse this in the questions about Barrios' removal from Game 2, confirming it was the organizational's plan to do so, but ultimately Schneider's call on when to execute that plan?
Yeah, I think he did. You know, that thing turned into a firestorm. I didn't expect all that. You know, I mean,
yeah, no one did.
You figure, well, you know, just like any baseball game, especially the postseason, everybody sometimes overanalyzes all the moves that are made and whether it affected the game or not. But this one just blew up, and I mean, obviously, there's an obvious reason why, right? The way he was removed so early in the game, he was pitching well. But I thought Mark did a great job, you know, kind of squelching that a little bit. The reality of it is, because I even said this on our last show, I think, or the one before that, you know, you're all in that together, man. You're supposed to be all in that together, you know. And the president runs the organization, the general manager runs the team, puts it together, and of course, the president signs off on it. And then you hire a manager and the coaching staff to run the game, right? And all I can say is I had the leeway to do them the way I wanted to, me and the coaches. And, you know, has that changed? Yeah, I think it's a little more analytics driven. There's a little more input from the top, no doubt about it. That's, part of the reason I'm gone, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But, everybody's got to stick together. You know what? Nobody really understood the move in the game in the baseball world, and rightfully so. That's the beauty of baseball. There's so many different ways to do things. So nobody knows exactly what happened, but hopefully this squelches it because and move on, put another good team on the field next year. Because the fan base deserves that, right? But it'll die down. It always does. But everybody's in the crosshairs. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, when I watched the press conference from Shapiro, for me personally, I thought it was a much better explanation than what Ross Atkins and his comments from several days earlier. Shapiro said also that that there really needs to be more transparency and communication with the players, which I think was an important point that he made. Obviously, there was a lot of shock and surprise. Most of the team, especially on the pitching side, they knew that this was an organizational decision, but when it was going to be executed was another situation. With the comments from Atkins and now Shapiro, it's really time to turn a page because you have to look to improve the synergies between the front office, the field manager, and the players. Don't you think that's like an ultimate goal here now? Get everybody on the same page, the front office, the field manager, the ownership, so you can get that trust, that complete trust from the players as you head into next year.
Well, I know this much. The players got to be able to trust that the manager's making the decisions, right? If everybody understands, and don't get me wrong, that there's always heavy input from front offices now, throughout every team out there, some more than others, obviously. The front offices historically in baseball have always been involved putting the teams together, right? But they never really did much except player personnel. If you need a new player, you bring somebody up, and then the manager and the coaches ran the game. And the players got to know that's the case. The way you lose those guys, if they think you're a puppet down there, and you're you can't, right or wrong, whether there's any value to that or not, they think this guy can't even think for himself. So. And what happens then? The manager loses all clout. So if a player's not playing, it's like, well, the front office doesn't want me playing. Instead of being able to go into the manager's office and sit down and say, "What's going on? How come I'm not playing?" And you guys hash it out. Mm-hmm. That's that's where there's got to be, trust is restored. But like I said, I didn't think it would blow up like the way it did, but. That's why, you speak the truth, people, you can never go wrong. Say, hey, you know what? We screwed up. It was a bad baseball decision, whether it was or not, that you can argue, well, but we didn't score enough runs, obviously. But, you can just speak reality, man. People like that.
Yeah, if that it could have been averted, like you say, if like from immediately, it was just kind of like this joint. Atkins, Schneider, just this is what happened. This was our plan. This is when we executed it. And if that was all said in the beginning of this whole process, we wouldn't be where we are right now, where everyone's questioning it. The players are questioning it. So, yeah, I hope they learn from this.
Yeah, I always had the belief, and I even said it to JP Ricciardi as a GM when I was there, and then Alex Anthopoulos a few times. Listen, if you don't like the job I'm doing, you should find somebody else. And they could, we'd butt heads over that. And they say, what do you do? What are you talking like that for? I said, it's the truth. If you're running a team and you think your manager doesn't do it the way you like it, why would you not get somebody that you agree with? So my point is, if you're managing a team, it's like Bruce Bochy right now, right? Do you think anybody's interfering with what he's doing? They trust that. Okay, he's Bruce Bochy. He's got the pedigree, right? But still, I mean, every manager in the game, for the most part, I'm sure, I hope, understands the game of baseball and how it's played. And they have experience doing it, so you trust them. Otherwise, don't hire them in the beginning, right?
Exactly. Well, you are listening to the Gibby Show, presented by our friends at Miller Lite. And Gibby, watching these playoffs, and I know you watch your football as well with the Cowboys and watching this, I'm sure there are there are times where the Miller Lights are being cracked open, and like me, you're enjoying them during watching these exciting playoffs this year.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We've been known to have a few Miller Lights, even throw a couple at the screen.
Yeah.
When, but you know what? It's that light beer that tastes like full
like real
leaded one.
beer.
Yes,
It
that's
certainly
right.
does, and you can't go wrong with the official beer of Major League Baseball, and that's our friends over at Miller Lite. So we always appreciate their support right here on the Gibby Show.
Corner booths, sticky floors, weekdays that feel like weekends. You never forget the way some things taste. Miller Lite, great taste, 90 calories. Tastes like Miller time.
Gibby, looking towards the upcoming free agency class of 2023. Players are allowed to declare, as you know, right after the end of the World Series. The Jays are in an interesting spot. They have at least 5 players on that list, possibly 7 if options are not exercised. Those include position players Brandon Belt, Matt Chapman, Whit Merrifield, Kevin Kiermaier, and pitchers Jordan Hicks, Young Jin Ryu, and Chad Green, and potentially not playing for Toronto next year. So I want to ask you about a couple of the free agents here, some of the most prominent ones, and what you feel, who will be retained, who may go. And I want to start off with Matt Chapman. Obviously, he's a big name out there. So what's your feelings on Chapman coming back or leaving?
If I was to guess, of course, this is a strictly opinion. I don't think you'd see him back next year. With the way Davis Snyder came up and played, and of course Biggio really showed himself well at the end of the year. You're probably looking for guys, get those guys more opportunities. And Chapman's going to cost you a lot of money, right? Same way with Whit. Whit's kind of at that point in his career. Why would he want to stick on a 1-year deal? Or anything like that, where he can go somewhere else and get a multi-year deal.
Yeah. Whit is 34, and he has a mutual player team option for $18 million for next year, and those are rarely picked up. But you do have people to fill in if he does leave. On the Chapman situation, it's interesting too. He's now represented by and has been by Scott Boras. So Boras traditionally takes his players right through the whole free agent process. But the question for you is, do you think the Jays should at least extend a qualifying offer to Chapman, which will be in the range of about $20 million? They'll probably turn it down anyway, so they can get that draft pick back if they lose him.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll do that. It's got a standard, especially a guy, somebody's going to give, Chapman, 3 or 4 years, I would think. It may not be the money, everybody's forecasting necessarily, but yeah, Boris's guys don't, they usually when they get to that free agent time, they try it out.
They go for the juggler for the most part.
Yeah, they see what
Boras has gotten big
there.
money for his guys. So
yeah, but there's also been some guys who've gotten burned too. That
yes, Michael Conforto rings a bell to me. Yeah. What about Kevin Kiermaier? 33 years old, great defender, popular with the fans. You think he's got a shot at coming back, or is it?
It's hard to say. I think the way the season finished, and they were one of the top payroll teams in baseball. How high they're going to keep that payroll, I've got no idea. Dealing with the ownership and but I'm sure they're going to try to conserve wherever they can. And you got some, you got some good young players that they want playing time, guys that have come along, had some big performances, and maybe take a look at them. I think Kiermaier would be a good guy to keep on the team in whatever role you want. He's the ultimate team guy. Yes. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see with him.
Jordan Hicks is another one. They picked him up at the trade deadline. He throws over 100 miles an hour. He's 27 years old. I mean, and he only made $1.8 million this year. So I guess he's good. He's going to go for the big bucks. So that's also probably a toss up when it comes to Hicks. Then you have Ryu. Rio's 36. I guess they're going to wait to see what happens with Manoah too, or they just may let Rio go. I mean, so there's some big decisions here to make, John, with this team.
Yeah, with Rio, I wouldn't anticipate him coming back because you got Ricky Tiedemann, coming along fast in the minor leagues. you know, and then like you mentioned Manoah there, hopefully he bounces back. You know, the bullpen, I think they recognize that was a real strength of their team. They got to keep Chad Green, I would think. You know,
I want to talk to you about Chad for a second.
Well, they took him through the rehab, you know, and invested a lot in, and I'm sure there's some loyalty on his part there, and even Hicks. You know, if they could, structure that, you know, they'll be saving some money on Ryu anyway. So
I would love to see them bring back Hicks and of course Green. You know that the Jays are invested, as you said, with Green because of the surgery, and I just want to bring up to you the unique structure of this agreement with him because I've never really seen anything like it before. Toronto has a 3-year club option on him, which would pay Green $27 million for the 3 years, 24 to 2026. If they decline that, then Green has a 1-year player option making $6.5 million. If Chad denies that one, then the team could come back and say, all right, we'll give you 2 years. They have an option for 2 years for 24 and 25 at $21 million a year. So you know that they want to work together here. So I would guess that he's going to stay.
Yeah, I would think so. You know, he's got like a new arm. You know, he had that Tommy John. He's got he's you know, he's experienced in the American League East. He knows what, and he really did a nice job. You know, for him coming back, and you know they sacrificed him and invested in him. So you know, there's a good mutual relationship there, and hopefully that both sides stick by that. But you know what, the game is all bullpen now. You know, the way that, especially back to analytics again, the way that starters are used, you really need a long bullpen that, you know, with many guys, you know, that you can count on. So if you get a chance to keep those guys, you need to.
Yeah, build upon the strength of that bullpen, which was great this year, and, of course, the starting pitcher. So it's going to be an interesting offseason. Of course, we'll continue to follow it right here on the Gibby Show. But that's going to wrap up the leadoff, John. And now it's time for Gabbing with Gibby, brought to you by Tim Hortons. And there are 4 delicious loaded bowls now available from Tim Hortons restaurants across Canada. Try the new Chipotle Steak Bowl for something savory, or you could try the new Barbecue Crispy Chicken Bowl for something smoky, the Cilantro Lime Chicken Bowl for zesty, or the Habanero Chicken Bowl for something spicy. Or all 4 bowls are packed with hearty ingredients, including tasty grains, lettuce, freshly diced tomatoes, and cucumbers, which are topped off with creamy, flavorful sauce for an awesome meal. What do you think, John?
Yeah, good. You know, I still can't get over how many different options they give you at Tim Hortons. I didn't realize that when I was up there. Maybe it was because the only time I dropped in there was for breakfast. But yeah, it's really, hey, it gets yourself. You can get many different type of drinks to go along with it, or heck, get you a pastry to go along with one of those deals. And
get a
pretty good deal, man.
Yeah, get a quencher, get another baked good, and that's a meal that'll keep you going all day.
Yeah, and you don't have to eat the rest of the day. You can go. It's be like on that intermittent fasting. You don't have to eat the rest of the day.
There you go. Today on Gabbing with Gibby, brought to you by Tim Hortons, we bring back one of the true insiders of Major League Baseball right now. He is at the ALCS covering the series between the Houston Astros and Texas Rangers for Fox Sports. He's the senior writer for The Athletic, and he appears regularly on the Foul Territory Baseball podcast as well. That's very entertaining. It's always our pleasure to welcome back Ken Rosenthal to Gabbing with Gibby. Ken, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be with you guys again.
Always fun.
Hey, you're looking good down in Texas. You actually look a little bigger down there in Texas. You know, like everything's bigger down there. Down here, I should say there.
Everything but one thing. I'm not any bigger in Texas. Same small size.
Hey, you're the man everywhere you go. It doesn't matter. Kenny, thanks for joining us, pal.
No problem.
Get him, Johnny.
We got to talk to you first and foremost about a really compelling article you wrote in The Athletic about the analytics and numbers dictating decisions in baseball. And you wrote that baseball should bring back the feel of a game. and how that game unfolds. This was written highlighting the decision to lift Jose Barrios from Game 2 of the AL Wildcard Series. Talk to us about that column and why you felt the need to write it and how those in the game have reacted to it so far.
John, I wrote that obviously with the Game 2 decision as a launching point, but it really wasn't about that decision specifically. It was about the trend in the game that we've seen going on for several years now. And I am a proponent of analytics. I love analytics. I've loved what they've brought to the game, both from my own perspective as a writer. I've been enlightened by some of the things that we've been able to quantify. It helps me explain things better. It's great. Players have benefited from analytics. There are countless stories of guys who have used technology and the data to improve their game. These are great things. Teams have improved because of it. All good. What sometimes gets out of hand, in my opinion, is the decision making that is based on analytics and purely analytics at times. That's not right. And that we see come into play in any number of instances, in any number of games. When it doesn't happen, as it hasn't happened with the Texas Rangers and Bruce Bochy the last 2 games, and really ever since he's been a manager, then it stands out the other way. Because, wow, this is somebody who's actually managing the way we used to see games managed. And there is a way to blend the two, and that's what should be happening. There should be a blend. And for anyone to say, I'm going to go on my gut and not on what I have in front of me, the information, that's ridiculous. Equally ridiculous is scripting a game based on the numbers. And that is what John Schneider did, whether he was the one responsible or the front office was the one responsible. There are many sides to this story. All I know is, and I've said this on my show and other shows as well, teams brag now all the time about how collaborative they are. We're collaborative. We make decisions as a team. Well, here's the one decision that was not collaborative. It was all John Schneider's fault. He's the one who held the smoking gun. I somehow doubt it.
Yeah.
Hey, Kenny, you know what? Kenny, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, baseball's always been about numbers. It has, you know, now it's, of course, it's taken to a new level. But I don't think I know any manager that does everything from his gut, right? You know, they use their eyes, but everybody has information before them, right? And I can only speak for myself as well. You know, we used to lay out a plan going into a game. Okay, this guy's available. This guy's, you know, if we get in trouble early, we're going to do this or that, right? But now but you kind of let the game dictate it. You know, you see what your eyes are telling you. Because on any given night, that may be that guy's night. He may be having the game of his career. Let's talk about, speaking of the guy on the mound, you know. And so, you know, I was listening to somebody the other day too, and I witnessed it so many times. If you're in the other dugout, let's say my guy's dealing, right? And he's getting it later, but he's dealing. They're not touching. You go out to take him out. Those guys in the other dugout are going, "Hey, thank you very much. Hey, smart
That's
guy."
right.
That away, and they exhale, and it happens. I guarantee 90% of the times things swing the other way. Just the way it is.
Well, Gibby, Joel Sherman is a writer. I know you know him.
Yeah,
and he's one of my favorites. He's a friend of mine, and he has a great line that applies to these kinds of situations. He says always, you should do what the other team doesn't want you to do. The other team wanted Barrios out of the game. The Twins wanted him out. The Jays, because he was rolling, should have kept him in. And I understand what they're doing, and I understand Kikuchi. They wanted to back him up with that, but they should have brought in Meza for a dirty inning anyway. I mean, there are all kinds of things that went on here. So it's one decision. One decision's never going to determine a game or a series or anything like that. But it kind of spoke to a lot of the things we've been talking about over the years. And John, you asked me about the reaction within the game. And actually, I was quite surprised by how many people reached out to me after that. I don't usually get many people saying anything to me one way or the other on an article. Once in a while, hey, that was a good job or whatever from somebody in the game, but pretty rarely. And that's fine. They shouldn't be just sending me compliments. I could care less. But that column, not everybody, but I would say 10 to 15 texts. Hey, you nailed it. You know, that kind of thing. So there are obviously a number of people in the game who feel that there should be more feel. And there are people in the game who want it to be totally numbers driven. And I appreciate the debate, but at the same time, there has to be a balance. And it seems to me at times we've gotten away from that balance. Hey, the commissioner of baseball, Major League Baseball, had to institute new rules this year because analytics had gotten the game to a point where it's becoming less entertaining. Well, the game is now to a point from a competitive standpoint where it also is being skewed in kind of ways that it shouldn't be.
Yeah. And, Kenny, analytics, right, are beautiful. I think the numbers, when you're putting your team together during the off season, right? You're acquiring the players that all fit together, and you're hoping. But a guy we're watching now in the postseason, Castellanos, right? Big numbers. He signed that big contract coming over to Philly and struggled, right? Okay, the analytics said he should have done this or that. But here comes the emotional side, the mental side. He's in a new place, in a tough town. He gets off to a slow start. He's feeling the heat, and he doesn't reach his norm. Now he's kind of settled in. The guys around him, they've all rallied. Whatever. Now he's back to what everybody. But see, so that's where I think a lot of this is lost. The human side of it. These guys deal with the ups and downs, whether it's their performance or what's going on in their life and things like that. And we can't lose sight of that, but hey, I'm one of those guys. So you hit it on the nose. Do you usually, all your articles are right on the money? Do people know you're usually coming to me for a little bit of advice on what to write about?
Yeah, they kind of know you're my ghostwriter. Yeah.
Wow.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on this topic. Obviously, the Blue Jays had a couple of press conferences, one with the Ross Atkins, and he said the decision was all Schneider's, and he just kind of put it all on Schneider. And then Jays president and CEO Mark Shapiro had a different take, saying the organization needed to be accountable, and that accountability went right to the top to him, although he did say when that plan was going to be executed was going to be up to Schneider. But it seemed to be a little bit of a circus here with these two press conferences and Schneider staying radio silent, basically, since all of this has happened. Couple of questions here. Do you think Atkins threw Schneider under the bus? And can the GM and the manager get over this controversy together? Because they got to work together for, the future, next season.
Yes, he threw John Schneider under the bus. There's no question about that. He directly pointed the finger at John Schneider. Now, maybe that is actually what happened, and maybe the plan was do this at some point in the game, and Schneider took it to mean let's do it the first instance where I have a chance. Okay, doesn't matter. What matters is an organization that claims to be collaborative, like all the other organizations, basically turned on the one guy who it could turn on, the manager, when in fact it's a collective responsibility. And one of the things that bothers some people in the game is that the analysts who suggest certain decisions, well, they're never the ones getting blamed. We don't know who they are. We know who the manager is, and he's the one who gets ripped. So the worst part of that for me was not the decision itself. You make a bad decision, you make a bad decision, even if it's analytically driven and seemingly ridiculous in our eyes. That happens. But when the general manager comes out and says, not me, not my fault, that is not leadership. And that should not have happened. And I was quite surprised Ross Atkins took the approach he did. It just kind of blew my mind. So can they get past it? I'm sure they can get past it. They're two mature individuals, John Schneider and Ross Atkins. They, I'm sure, have had differences in the past. But this was a very public thing. And it will be interesting to see how this all evolves, because you can make a case that Ross Atkins shouldn't be the GM. You can make a case that John Schneider shouldn't be the manager. I'm not saying they should be fired, but you can certainly build a case against both of them. And to some degree, they're both going to be on the hot seat next year. And this team had a very funny season. I never took to this team like a lot of fans because they never really ignited. And it's curious to me that that didn't happen. They have great offensive players that didn't really produce to their career norms. So next year's a big year for the Jays, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, at the end of the day, regardless of the Barrios situation, the Jays simply didn't hit, and they never, as you said, ignited. So saying that, And with not the best free agent class out there coming into the off season, what do you think the Jays need to do to get better in 2024?
It's a good question. And the free agent class, especially from an offensive perspective, is thin. There are starting pitchers out there. I don't know if the Jays need to get into that market. They're pretty well set. They could use a Teoscar Hernandez, maybe. That kind of guy, just another bat in the lineup. They made trades that seemingly didn't look bad at the time. The Gurriel trade with Moreno going over to Arizona for Varsho. I like that trade. I thought it was shrewd, actually. And the Teoscar trade, I got it. They didn't want to pay him and then lose him as a free agent. But they lost something. They lost part of their identity, it seems like to me. That team had a very strong culture with those players. And I remember at the All-Star game a couple of years ago, Gurriel did not make it, but Guerrero and Bichette and Teoscar had made it. They were talking to Gurriel on FaceTime from the dugout during the game. These guys had, I don't know, they had a certain something. Now, you make moves, things happen, things change in baseball all the time. You can't retain the same chemistry. But it seems to me they're missing something. I'm not sure what it is, and I'm not sure the free agent market's going to offer it. But they can't.
The home run jacket
either.
They're missing the home run jacket.
Well, the jacket, that neighborhood, or whatever that phrase is, I can't remember it off the top of my head. That was their team, their chemistry. And
I'd rather lose than look at that. I'd rather lose every night than watch you throw that jacket on.
You don't want to look at
when
the
you're
jacket. You don't want to
down by 10 runs.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's a whole different story. Yeah, but Gibby, I think you'd agree with me. They had a certain vibe to them. It was good vibe, and it wasn't so much this year.
Yeah, you know what? I think they could use a couple more bozos on the team. A couple, and I don't want to say a-holes. But I think they could use almost a couple guys that had that rough edge. And I'm not comparing my teams to your Donaldson, Batistas. There's something about
exactly
guys that rough, because they're a bunch of good, wonderful good guys, great competitors. But there was just something raw. I thought that was missing.
Trade for Soto.
You know what I'm saying?
Soto's not that kind of guy, though. And you know what?
No.
Gibby? There aren't many guys like that in the game now. It's so funny. There's a term, I know Gibby knows it. I'm sure he's used it many times. The term, it's a baseball term. It's red ass. And a red ass is a guy who kind of ticks people off and who has a hot temper. The game now, for whatever reason, doesn't have those guys. And actually, Gibby, some of us older writers have been talking in recent days, just sharing stories. When I broke in the late 80s, I was terrified of walking into the Orioles clubhouse as the beat guy. It made me very uneasy. Now, everyone is nice. Now, it's better.
Yeah.
You don't want jerks. You don't want to get yelled at every day like I was getting yelled at every day. But there is a certain edge that certain players bring. Donaldson is an acquired taste for sure. But, yeah, sometimes it's missing.
Yeah, because if you could go through every great team along the way. You can go back to all the great Yankee teams, even the Red Sox from your Manny Ramirez and those guys. There's some guys on those teams that aren't well liked. They just kind of stir things up, and I think that's good. But all right, before we let you go here, what do you like? Who do you like? There's 4 teams left, right? Well, before we get to that, the Dodgers and the Braves, right? The two everybody picked, right? And if you look at it, look at the Dodgers. It's time for the Dodgers to start winning some stuff. They get there every year. Every year, there's expanded play. They win 100 games. They won in 2020. That doesn't count. That was a short, abbreviated. That shouldn't count. You know what I mean? It's time for those teams to start winning. Then the Braves get knocked out. Here's my last statement. See, I see the Phillies as kind of that raw team. That rough. They got that edge about them, right? Led by Harper, and they got it. Yeah, and they took it to the Braves. I don't see that. I saw the World Championship Braves a couple of years ago had that. They said there just seemed to be something about them, toughness or whatever. And so I think that's kind of what we're talking about, But who do you like?
Yeah, the Phillies have.
Yeah, they do.
Well, it's easy now. We got one team up 2-0, another team up 1-0. I can pick the series. I do like Texas. Texas 7-0 in the postseason, and they're playing great. Now, do I rule out Houston? You can never rule out Houston. They are the defending World Series champs, 7 straight LCS appearances. They have that quality. They have it. Haven't shown it in the first 2 games. Would not be surprised to see them come out and do some big things over the next couple because they've played great at Globe Life Field. They are a team that has, Gibby, just what you're talking about, that winning edge. The Phillies, it's hard to see them losing to the Diamondbacks. They're just a better team, and they have what you're talking about in abundance. They like playing with each other. They like playing in their city, and they like winning. And it's a number of great players. That let's not forget that. They've got great players. Zach Wheeler, one of the more underrated aces of this generation. Bryce Harper is a future Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. Castellanos, you mentioned, he's come up big. Schwarber, Trey Turner, Real Muto, one gamer after another. The kid in center field, Rojas, is elite. They've got a lot going for them in a good way. Even complimentary guys like Marsh and Bohm and Stott. This is an impressive group of players. So I can see them winning it all. Texas, I don't know what Bochy does, Gibby. I don't know if you can explain it, but that guy, there is something about him. And
confidence.
We keep taking our and confidence in players and trust in players. That's one of the things I was talking about in that story. He has that, and they respond to it. You saw game 1, he sticks with Montgomery. He could have pulled. Other managers would have pulled Montgomery. Game 2, Evaldi has that bases loaded, none out situation, gets out of it. Bochy never moved. Something's going on there, man. They got a good thing going. And I would like to see, actually, a Phillies-Rangers World Series. I think it would be great. Not to discredit the Astros or Diamondbacks. If they're in the World Series, that's great too. But these 2 teams right now are the teams playing the best, and they deserve to be there.
Yeah, it's gonna go down the wire. But well, listen, we appreciate you coming on. But hey, when you were talking a minute ago about going into the Baltimore, when you first started out the Baltimore clubhouse, and you're ducking and all that, for crying out loud! Now I look on TV in the middle of a huge game, playoff game. You're in the dugout interviewing guys. What a change.
Well, you're right. And I don't know if we talked about this, Gibby, on the show before. I know a lot of people are taken aback by that, and they're kind of like, whoa, that's not right. But I will say this, when the idea was first given to me last year, that Fox wanted to do this, Major League Baseball wanted to do this, and we were going to try it, I was a little uneasy because that's not my place to be in that dugout, ever, in my opinion. But different times, and we evolve. And those interviews, sometimes they're not that good, but sometimes they're amazing. And to hear a player right in the moment when he's in the game and in the mix, it's pretty cool. And as far as interrupting the game and disrupting the dugout, that doesn't happen. What I do is we have a list of players that will do it. And not every player will do it. We have a list of players that will do it. I'll walk in there if something happens and we have a guy on the approved list is somebody I want to talk to. I'll kind of quietly maneuver my way in. Maybe he's coming down to the end anyway, but I'll maneuver my way in, pull him aside. The interview takes less than a minute. So we're not ruining the game or doing anything like that. And if John Gibbons was the manager, I'd have the microphone in his face, man. Big time.
Hey, just stay away from the bat rack. Don't try to grab a bat and go up there and get an AB, man.
No. Like I said, I know my place, Gibby.
Hey, Verducci would try to do that, man. But come on.
No, he wouldn't try to grab a bat.
No, he would try to get in the manager's ear and tell him what statistics he needed to pay attention on right now. All right, Kenny. Hey, listen, go out and get you some good Mexican food, man. You're in Texas. For lunch. And it's always a pleasure. Nobody better, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
Oh, geez. I'm going to go to sleep.
Thanks, Ken.
Be good, man.
Just before we go, did you have a take on the free agents that the Jays have, those list of free agents? Do you think any of them will be back?
Yeah. It's Chapman. It's Kiermaier.
Yeah.
It's Belt.
And Merrifield.
Merrifield and then Hicks, Ryu, and Chad Green.
I don't know if any will be back. I don't know.
I bet Green does. Yeah, they got, you know, if they got bouncing that like they did this, and they're over that 200 million mark, that ownership up there is going to go.
I mean, maybe Merrifield. I think he's happy there. But
he ain't happy now. He didn't get a start in the playoff game. He ain't happy. He's leaving.
And Chapman has Boris.
Right. You're right.
Boris will take him right through the process, I'm sure. And
well, he fizzled anyway.
Chapman forget about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Guys, take care.
Be good. Okay.
See you later, man. Thanks, Jimmy. Thank you.
Gibby, I mean, bringing Ken on is always a pleasure. What a smart guy. Just one of the top baseball analysts in the game. Great to have his insights here today.
Yeah, one of the all-time good guys. You know, he's been around this game a long time. You know, he's connected. You know, he talks to all the right people, and he's very professional, and he's and you know, he's not afraid to give his opinion. You know, that's the beauty of it all. But heck, people will watch him on our show. Next thing you know, they'll turn on the TV tonight watching, or next couple of days watching those games. There he is again. And say, God, we can't get enough of this guy either, or we're tired of looking at this guy more so than me.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere for sure.
He's everywhere.
We always appreciate his time here on Gabbing with Gibby. And also, don't forget, everybody out there, to try those 4 delicious loaded bowls from Tim Hortons restaurants across Canada. You could try the new Chipotle steak bowl for something savory, the new barbecue crispy chicken bowl for something smoky, the cilantro lime chicken bowl for zesty, or the habanero chicken bowl for something spicy. So don't forget to head out to Tim's across Canada to try one of these great loaded bowls. And now, Gibby, go ahead.
Time to eat.
Exactly. Now, inspired by our friends at Miller Lite, it's going to be time for this week's Roast and Toast. Well, John, this week's controversy erupted when, after making the final out of the Game 2 NLDS on the base paths, Bryce Harper was reportedly the subject of ridicule in the Braves clubhouse post-game celebration. Braves shortstop Orlando Arcia was observed repeating, "Attaboy, Harper," after reporters entered. Of course, Harper had gotten thrown out at first base, doubled off after Michael Harris' spectacular catch on Nick Castellanos, 2 outs in the 9th inning to end that game. And Arcia was heard saying, "Attaboy, Harper," several times in the clubhouse. Harper got his revenge by blasting 2 home runs and glaring at Arcia while rounding the bases in Game 3, not once but twice. That should have ended it. But Atlanta catcher Travis d'Arnaud blamed the media for sparking the feud between Arcia and Harper and said the clubhouse is a sanctuary. And when comments like that get out, it doesn't make players want to talk to the media at all. The comment was made. It might or might not have fired Harper up. It probably did. It's the game of baseball. It's being competitive. But don't blame the media. For this belly aching, this week's roast got to go to Travis d'Arnaud for sparking this unnecessary controversy.
Yeah, you know, that stuff's all part of the game. You know what? Actually, I would have rather, first off, Harper screwed up getting doubled off. You know, it happens. The same thing happened to Altuve the other day in Game 1 of that playoff series. He didn't retouch second base. It happens, and it just shows you it happens to the greatest players. But you know, those are the things that could cost you in the end, right? So that happened. So they were having fun with it, really, you know, hammering them on it, like, you know, if you want to call it bench jockeying or whatever, but it was in the clubhouse. So what? That's just part of it. I would rather seen Arcia, is Harper coming around second base, say something back at him. You know, you got a pretty good rivalry between those two. You don't have to sit there and take it. You know, even though he's the big guy, Harper's the big guy. Yes, yeah, you know, if you say something, stand up for yourself. I got, you know, because the media's in there, especially postseason time. They're hearing everything, and
yes,
and I think, you know, I think a little tension sometimes is good for everybody. You know, so yeah, you know, it is their sacred place. The same, you know, the clubhouses, the players, yeah, but when it's open to the media and it's in playoff time,
yeah,
you know,
when the Phillies celebrated after they eliminated the Braves, I mean, they were chanting a couple of, you know, F-bombs in the locker room, directed at the Braves and also directed at the Mets for, so it happens. It's just part of it happens. It gets out there. Don't make a big deal out of it. The players can handle it on the field.
No, you got to make a big deal out of it and let it motivate you and let maybe like a couple bowls, man. Go head to head, man.
Go head to head.
Yeah. Clear them benches.
Exactly. I think we got a lot of great playoff action ahead, and then the World Series is going to be a great one this year. So we look forward to that. But Gibby, speaking of that, let's get to the toast of the week, and I think you'll appreciate this one. Today's toast is actually going to go out to 2 senior citizens. Not saying that you're one of them. You're still a very young man. Together, these gentlemen have been in the majors for decades. They retired from being active players 20 years before the iPhone was invented. As major league managers, they've combined for 4,276 wins, 4 World Series titles, and each are ironically celebrating their 26th year as big league managers this year. They've proven time and time again, it's not how old you are, it's how good of a job you can do, regardless of age. And now they face off in the ALCS for the very first time at the age of 74 and 68, respectively. Houston Astros manager Dusty Baker and Texas Rangers skipper Bruce Bochy get this week's toast of the week.
Yeah, we got to salute them. And the only difference is now, but they're both sharp. The only difference is it takes them a little bit longer to get out to the mound for a pitching change. That's the only difference than 20 years ago. But you can tell, what, they're both calming influences on their team. That they have tremendous confidence in their players. Yeah. And in themselves. They let their guys go out and play, and then they make the decisions. But I guarantee everybody still knows who's in charge. It's really done wonders for the Texas Rangers. When Boach came in, they put this team together with a ton of talent. They spent a lot of money. They got a new stadium, and they're invested in DeGrom and Evaldi and a lot of position players. Right? They went out and got the perfect guy to guide them, and they got. Chris Young, Dayton Moore running the team over there, 2 of the best baseball men around. And even same thing with Houston. If you look at the whole body of work, you talk about the Dodgers and the teams, doing this, and even the Braves, the Astros are the team. They've been to this is their 7th straight ALCS
championship series. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, and they've gone through different GMs. Some different players, but their core players are the same, and they got the same owner who really wants to win, and they're there every year. So it's really it just shows you, experience sometimes it can go a long way. But a lot of teams, with the analytics being so heavy, which we talked about a lot on our show, want that guy that'll take the info they give him and apply it directly to the team without any of your figuring any of your wisdom.
Right. But how many years in a row have the older generation led teams to the World Series? I mean, you look at look at Dusty, you look at the Atlanta Braves skipper, Schnittger, you look at all of, I mean, it looks like the experience, the wisdom, that is the leadership. It means something. So baseball guys.
But I will say this too. Wisdom means also that these guys are smart enough not to take teams that aren't very talented. See,
they've been around a while.
They're going to go for talented teams.
They're not going to Oakland.
No, you won't see them. You won't catch them out there. They couldn't pay them enough.
Exactly.
Corner booths, sticky floors, weekdays that feel like weekends. You never forget the way some things taste. Miller Lite, great taste, 90 calories. Tastes like Miller time.
Well, Gibby, before we go, we want to mention that right now through October 27th, ECW Press is offering a personalized copy of the best-selling book, Gibby, Tales of a Baseball Lifer. It's a great opportunity for those shopping early for the holidays. All you got to do is go to ecwpress.com/Gibby and order your signed and personalized copy of Gibby's best-selling memoir, only while supplies last. And only as long as John's arm does not get tired signing all of these books. So go to ecwpress.com/Gibby to get your autographed copy today. There you go. Keep signing, John. That'll wrap up this edition of the Gibby Show. For John Gibbons, this is John Arezzi. We'll be back next week to talk more postseason baseball with you. Have a great week, everyone.